Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex ideas, extract surprising insights from the latest research, and look at some really compelling case studies. Today, we're venturing into a truly fascinating frontier. It's the profound and I think often underestimated connection between the mind and the body, and its tangible, measurable impact on health. This isn't just theory, is it? We're talking about demonstrable biological shifts, things that directly influence physiological processes right down to the fundamentals. For you, our dedicated audience of mid to senior medical professionals, this deep dive, well, it aims to challenge some conventional paradigms, maybe open up new avenues for understanding patient outcomes, treatment efficacy, and perhaps even your own personal well being. We'll meticulously explore how conscious thought, deeply held beliefs, and cultivated emotions can profoundly influence everything, from cellular regeneration right through to genetic expression. Joining me to guide us through this complex, incredibly rich material is a distinguished expert who can really eliminate the how and the why of these remarkable transformations. So let's start with something familiar, perhaps. The placebo effect. It's often dismissed, isn't it? Almost casually, as all in the mind. But what if that phrase, all in the mind, actually points to an incredibly powerful, maybe untapped medical tool? What does the rigorous scientific evidence truly tell us about its very real physiological impact? Something that goes far beyond just subjective expectation.
That's a crucial starting point because, the history of medicine itself is actually quite rich with observations that strongly hint at the mind's profound influence on the body. We can trace these insights back centuries. For instance, back in the 1770s, you had Franz Anton Mesmer, a Viennese physician. He developed this concept of animal magnetism. He believed an invisible fluid flowed through the body and could be manipulated. Mesmer would wave magnets, or sometimes just his hands, over patients. And they often experienced what he termed crises, things like trembling, twitching, even convulsions, which he considered therapeutic. He reported helping hundreds heal various physical and mental ailments, paralysis, chronic pain, essentially by changing their perception, their minds really, about their maladies and their capacity to heal. His methods, well, they were controversial at the time, certainly, but they consistently produced physical change.
Right, even back then, without the tools we have now.
Exactly. And building on this, in the 1800s, the Scottish surgeon James Braid further explored these states. He developed neurohypnotism, which of course we now universally call hypnotism. Braid observed a patient staring intently at a lamp flame, entering this deeply suggestible state. He then learned to induce this trance by having subjects concentrate intensely on a single object. He believed it could cure a wide range of disorders: chronic rheumatoid arthritis, sensory impairment, even complications from spinal injuries. His seminal work, Neurohypnology, details many successes, including curing a woman with paralyzed legs and another suffering from a debilitating skin disorder and severe headaches. So these early practitioners, operating without modern drugs, they consistently demonstrated that focused mental suggestions could elicit profound physical changes. They really laid the groundwork for what we're now able to scientifically dissect.
It's amazing to think how long these ideas have been around, even if the explanations were different.
Precisely. And a truly pivotal moment, one that sort of propelled this concept into modern medical consciousness, occurred during World War II. Army doctor Henry Beecher. He was operating under dire circumstances, critically wounded soldiers on the battlefield and facing a severe shortage of morphine.
A nightmare scenario for any clinician.
Absolutely. So in a desperate measure, he began successfully using saline injections as an analgesic.
Just saline instead of morphine.
Just saline. The soldiers, anticipating and believing they were receiving potent pain relief, well, they experienced it. This wasn't just a subjective report of feeling better, no. It strongly suggested a deeper, measurable physiological response happening within their bodies, mimicking the effects of the actual drug. It was a critical observation, highlighting the brain's own internal pharmacy, if you like.
So it wasn't just them thinking they felt better, but their bodies actually producing a tangible pain-relieving response. That alone is incredibly compelling. But what does contemporary rigorous clinical trial data tell us now? Are we seeing these same profound effects today under controlled conditions?
Oh, absolutely. And the data becomes even more compelling, perhaps harder to dismiss when we look at modern clinical trials. One of the most relevant and I think often cited studies for medical professionals is the work by orthopedic surgeon Dr. Bruce Moseley. In 1996 and again in 2002, he conducted trials on men suffering from severe osteoarthritis of the knee. Many had noticeable limps, some required walking assistance, quite severe cases. He divided them into 3 groups. One received standard arthroscopic surgery debridement, another underwent a joint rinsing procedure, a lavage, and a third group received
Sham surgery.
Sham surgery, you mean?
Yes. For the sham group, incisions were made, but no actual medical procedure was performed. No arthroscope inserted, no scraping, no washing, nothing.
Okay. And the outcome?
What's truly astonishing is that all three groups reported equal improvements in mobility and pain reduction, not just immediately after the procedure, but even 6 months later, equal improvements. And perhaps the most remarkable part, when two of the men who'd received the placebo surgery were interviewed 6 years later, 6 years later, they were still walking normally, without pain. They had greater range of motion, doing everyday things they couldn't before. This evidence profoundly suggests that their belief in the healing power of the surgeon, the medical setting, the very act of having something done, was profoundly active, driving real, sustained physical change. It really challenges the assumption that only physical intervention yields physical results, doesn't it?
That's almost counterintuitive to how we're trained, isn't it? That belief alone could sustain such a long-term physical improvement. And you mentioned similar findings in other areas, cardiology, neurology. Can you elaborate on the physiological depth there?
Indeed, we've seen equally striking findings across various medical specialties. In the late 1950s, for example, there were studies on angina patients. They were undergoing internal mammary ligation, which was a standard heart surgery then, meant to create new blood vessels. But they found something extraordinary. A placebo procedure, where incisions were made but no new blood vessels were actually created, yielded similarly successful outcomes to the real surgery.
Really? So the supposed mechanism wasn't even active?
Exactly. Patients reported significant improvement in their chest pain, even though the presumed physiological mechanism, the new blood vessel formation, simply wasn't there. Their bodies responded to the expectation of healing, despite the lack of direct intervention. And more recently, in Parkinson's disease research, we've seen something perhaps even more profound. At the neurochemical level, patients received a saline injection, believing it to be a powerful medication that would significantly improve their symptoms. They demonstrated a remarkable physiological response.
So kind of response.
Brain scans, specifically PE scans, reveal that their brains manufactured up to 200% more dopamine.
200%.
Yes. Dopamine, the very neurotransmitter that's deficient in Parkinson's. This wasn't just a trick of the mind or a subjective feeling. It was a measurable neurochemical change, akin to administering a full dose of amphetamine. This biological alteration resulted in much better motor control for about half of the patients who received no actual drug at all. It fundamentally challenges our traditional pharmacological model, doesn't it? It suggests the potential for, well, endogenous pharmaceutical production simply through belief and expectation.
That's incredible. Producing your own medicine, essentially.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
These collective cases truly underscore that the placebo effect isn't just psychological. It's not just a subjective feeling of improvement. It manifests as tangible, objective biological changes within the body. For instance, take depressed patients who respond well to placebos. Brain scans consistently show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex. That's a region typically underactive in depression.
So the brain is physically changing its function.
Precisely. It isn't just feeling better. It's the brain physically altering its own state and function. It demonstrates a profound internal capacity for healing and normalization.
That's incredibly powerful validation. Actual neurochemical and brain activity shifts. So if the mind possesses this profound capacity to initiate healing, can it, conversely, induce harm? The shadow side, the nocebo effect. It's often less discussed, yet it seems equally potent. What does the evidence tell us about this inverse relationship?
You're absolutely right. The nocebo effect unequivocally demonstrates the mind's capacity to induce negative physical outcomes based purely on expectation and belief. One of the earliest and perhaps most profound insights into this came from Walter Bradford Cannon's research in the 1940s. He looked into what he termed voodoo death. He meticulously documented anecdotal reports, mainly from cultures with strong belief systems in which doctors or voodoo priests, individuals who believed they were hexed or cursed, would physically decline, rapidly, and tragically die, despite no apparent medical cause, no injury, no poison, no infection.
So what did Cannon attribute it to?
He attributed it to a complex interplay: intense fear, extreme psychological stress, and often social ostracization driving a fatal physiological response. It wasn't magic in the supernatural sense. It was a potent, self-fulfilling prophecy orchestrated by the mind, leading to actual physiological shutdown. A particularly striking and quite tragic modern example is the case of Sam Wand. He was diagnosed with extensive liver cancer, told he had only months to live.
A devastating diagnosis.
Indeed. And immediately after receiving this prognosis, he deteriorated very rapidly and passed away.
However, his autopsy revealed something unexpected. Only a tiny, non-lethal nodule of cancer in his liver. His esophagus was entirely free of disease.
So the cancer wasn't what killed him.
It appears not. His demise was attributed not to the physical presence of overwhelming cancer, but to the collective belief. His doctors, his families, and crucially his own belief that he was dying. His thoughts and expectations alone seemed powerful enough to override his actual physiological state, leading to a fatal outcome.
That's a truly chilling example. It demonstrates the immense responsibility we carry as clinicians, doesn't it? To think that a diagnosis, even when clinically accurate in its presentation, can carry such a powerful, almost detrimental, energetic weight. Are there other instances showing this power of negative expectation? Perhaps overriding even known physiological responses like allergies?
Precisely. Consider another compelling instance from a Japanese study back in 1962. They took children who were highly allergic to poison ivy. They were exposed to real poison ivy leaves, but crucially, they were told these leaves were harmless. And remarkably, they didn't develop a rash.
Despite a known allergy.
Despite a known strong allergy. Conversely, when these same children were exposed to completely harmless leaves, but told these were poison ivy, they developed characteristic rashes, indistinguishable from actual poison ivy exposure. It powerfully highlights how expectation or belief can fundamentally override a known, automatic physiological allergic response. Their bodies instantaneously responded to a new mind, effectively transcending their predictable physical reaction based on past experience. Similarly, in a 1968 study, asthmatic subjects experienced significant bronchial constriction, difficulty breathing, after inhaling simple water vapor.
Just water vapor.
Yes, purely because they were told it was an allergen. This demonstrates how a negative expectation, even from an inert substance, can trigger a profound and measurable physical reaction in a vulnerable system. It confirms the nocebo effect in a controlled clinical setting. These instances, they raise an exceptionally important question for medical professionals like yourselves, don't they? To what extent does a diagnosis or prognosis, especially when delivered with authority and conviction, function as a modern-day curse? Or perhaps a powerful negative suggestion? The language we use, the information we convey, the beliefs we implicitly or explicitly transfer, they can significantly impact a patient's physical reality, for better or indeed for worse. It really underscores the immense responsibility in patient communication, moving beyond simply delivering facts to understanding the psychological and indeed physiological resonance of those facts.
That's a truly sobering thought. It highlights the immense responsibility in every single patient interaction. We've seen the tangible power of belief for both good and ill, but that begs an even deeper question. How? How precisely do these seemingly abstract thoughts and emotions translate into such profound, measurable physical changes? What's happening at the most fundamental cellular level?
Yes, you've hit upon the critical point there. Our understanding of the brain has evolved significantly over recent decades. We once predominantly thought of it as, well, a fixed hardwired computer, limited capacity for change after a certain age, but we now know there's much more to the story. Each neuron within the brain is, in itself, a unique biocomputer, capable of processing enormous amounts of data up to hundreds of thousands of functions per second. These neurons form intricate and constantly evolving neural networks, neurocircuitry, allowing for complex information exchange.
So it's not static at all.
Not at all. The essence of this adaptability lies in a phenomenon called neuroplasticity. When we engage in novel learning, acquire new knowledge, have new experiences, our neurons actively make new synaptic connections. These connections are the electrochemical pathways through which information is exchanged between nerve cells. Nobel laureate Erkin Dell, in his groundbreaking work, demonstrated this clearly. When new memories form, the number of synaptic connections in sensory neurons can literally double. Conversely, if we don't use certain neural connections, they begin to shrink within a matter of weeks, a process called synaptic pruning. This dynamic process means our brains are constantly reshaping themselves, physically altering their hardware and software based on the signals we feed them through our thoughts, emotions, experiences. It's a continuous, real-time remodeling.
Constantly learning and adapting.
Exactly. And perhaps even more profound, even revolutionary, is the field of epigenetics. This area of research reveals that our genes are not static, unchangeable blueprints of our destiny, predetermined and immutable. Instead, research indicates that a vast majority of our genes estimates range from 75% to 85% are actively turned off and on by signals from our environment.
Environment meaning?
Critically, this environment includes the internal environment, our thoughts, beliefs, emotions. These signals can alter gene expression through mechanisms like DNA methylation, adding a chemical tag DNA that can turn genes off, or histone modification, which alters proteins that package DNA, making genes more or less accessible. One particularly fascinating class of these genes, known as immediate early genes or IEGs, they can reach peak expression in as little as 3 seconds.
3 seconds, that's incredibly fast.
Incredibly fast. What's more, these IEGs are often regulatory genes, meaning they can control the expression of hundreds of other genes and thousands of proteins throughout the body. This incredibly rapid and pervasive change offers a plausible, compelling biological explanation for some of the radical, seemingly miraculous healings that have been documented. It's not just an intellectual concept, it's a measurable biological mechanism for swift, profound transformation.
So if our thoughts are literally altering our genetic expression in a matter of seconds, this fundamentally redefines the concept of genetic predisposition, doesn't it? It implies we are far from passive recipients of our inherited code. What compelling evidence do we have that our experiences, rather than just our DNA, dictate gene expression?
Precisely. That's the key takeaway. Consider studies on identical twins. They share the exact same DNA, right? Identical genetic code to start with, yet they don't always manifest the same illnesses in the same way. Sometimes one twin develops a genetically linked disease while the other does not. A Spanish study looked at 40 twin pairs, ranging in age from 3 to 74. It illustrated this perfectly. They found younger twins, especially those with similar lifestyles, had very similar epigenetic patterns. However, older twins, particularly those with dissimilar lifestyles who'd spent fewer years living together, exhibited very different epigenetic patterns. For example, the researchers found 4 times as many differentially expressed genes between one pair of 50-year-old twins compared to a pair of 3-year-olds.
4 times as many differences.
Yes, it powerfully demonstrates that life experiences, and not just the inherited genetic code, dictate which genes are expressed and how. We are not victims of our genetic inheritance. We are active participants in its expression.
So lifestyle, choices, experiences, they're writing on our genes.
In a very real sense, yes. And the speed and scope of these epigenetic changes are truly remarkable. A 2008 study by Dean Ornish provides compelling evidence in a clinical context. It involved 31 men with low-risk prostate cancer. They followed an intensive nutrition and lifestyle regimen, including stress management techniques, exercise, group support, all influencing their internal environment. And in just 3 months, these men were able to upregulate 48 tumor-suppressing genes and downregulate an astonishing 453 tumor-promoting genes.
In only 3 months, that's rapid.
Very rapid. Ornish noted that these changes can occur so quickly you don't have to wait years to see the benefits. And even more impressively, perhaps, a Swedish study from 2013. They focused on 23 slightly overweight sedentary men. They started attending spinning and aerobics classes, on average just under twice per week. In a mere 6 months, these men epigenetically altered 7,000 genes.
7,000.
7,000 genes. That's almost 30% of the entire human genome. These findings unequivocally show that our thoughts and feelings, alongside our choices and behaviors, profoundly influence our genetic expression on a moment-to-moment basis. This isn't theoretical. It's verifiable biological transformation occurring in response to environmental input, including our internal conscious environment.
That's incredible. To think that our daily experiences, even our emotional states, are actively sculpting our genetic expression. So if our internal environment, our thoughts and emotions, can directly impact our genetic expression, what does that mean for conditions linked to chronic stress? And conversely, what power do positive emotions hold for fostering health and resilience?
This is where the implications for health and disease become particularly clear and clinically relevant. Stress. In all its forms, physical trauma, chemical toxins, or chronic emotional states like fear, anxiety, worry, anger, feeling overwhelmed. It's a significant driver of maladaptive epigenetic change. When the fight-or-flight response, which is designed for acute short-term survival threats, gets chronically activated, it triggers over 1,400 chemical reactions throughout the body. It floods the system with more than 30 hormones and neurotransmitters, like adrenaline and cortisol, from the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
The classic stress response.
Exactly. And while it's adaptive for immediate danger, prolonged activation is profoundly detrimental to long-term health. It shunts vital energy and resources away from essential physiological processes, things like cell growth, repair, immune surveillance, long-term healing. Effectively, cells shut down their normal communication pathways. The body's resources for optimal health are constantly diverted to this state of perceived survival. This continuous state of emergency, driven by chronic stress, prevents the body from returning to homeostasis.
It predisposes it to a wide array of chronic illnesses. We can directly observe the downregulation of genes vital for repair and regeneration.
So chronic stress is actively hindering the body's maintenance work.
Precisely. And we see this reflected in various studies. For instance, research on married couples showed that merely discussing a disagreement suppressed healing-linked proteins in their bodies, indicating a downregulation of crucial genes involved in wound repair and inflammation. And this suppression was even more pronounced, about 40% greater during conflicts marked by sarcasm, criticism, put-downs. This highlights how negative emotional states directly impair the body's capacity for repair and healing at a genetic and protein level, literally slowing down the body's ability to mend itself.
That's a direct, measurable link between relational stress and physiological impact. Profound implications for patient recovery there. But conversely, if negative emotions can suppress healing, what about the power of positive emotions? Are there specific pathways through which they promote health?
Conversely, and this is the exciting part, reducing stress through the cultivation of elevated positive emotions triggers beneficial epigenetic changes that actively promote health. Dr. Herbert Benson's pioneering work on the relaxation response demonstrated this beautifully. Simple thought pattern changes, like focusing on a repeated word or phrase, or engaging in mindful breathing could effectively lower blood pressure, normalize heart rate, decrease oxygen consumption, reduce muscle tension, bringing the body out of that chronic stress state and into a healing mode. This showed a direct physiological counter to the stress response.
A conscious way to switch gears, essential.
Exactly. Studies on laughter provide further compelling evidence. Japanese researchers found that diabetic patients watching an hour-long comedy program upregulated 39 genes, 14 of which were related to natural killer cell activity in the immune system. Now, while these genes weren't directly involved in blood glucose regulation, the patient's blood glucose levels were significantly better controlled after the comedy show than after they listened to a diabetes health lecture on a different day.
Interesting. So the positive emotion had a systemic benefit.
It seems so. Other research indicates significant increases in various antibodies after subjects watched humorous videos, boosting overall immune response, providing enhanced protection against pathogens. And in a more surprising finding, perhaps, a Japanese study even showed neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons in tickled baby rats, directly linking positive emotional states to brain regeneration and development.
Tickled rats generating new neurons. That's fascinating.
It is, isn't it? These findings strongly suggest that elevated emotions like joy, gratitude, excitement, inspiration, they act as powerful, energetic catalysts for health. When we combine a clear intention, a mental image of a desired future, with a heightened emotional response, our bodies begin to bathe in the very neurochemistry that would be present if that desired future event were already happening. The brain and body, neurochemically, they don't differentiate much between an actual experience in the external environment and one that is vividly imagined and felt in the internal environment. This profound process allows us to signal new genes in new ways, shifting our state of being and overcoming entrenched maladaptive patterns. It's about consciously creating the internal conditions for health, rather than passively waiting for external circumstances to dictate it.
That's a truly powerful concept, intentionally bathing our bodies in the neurochemistry of a desired future. It's almost like a form of internal biohacking. So for our medical professionals listening, how can we, or perhaps more importantly, how can our patients actively apply these concepts? Is there a practical framework for intentionally changing our biology, moving beyond just understanding the mechanisms?
Absolutely. And this is where the rubber meets the road, as it were, where the concept moves from abstract to actionable. The consistent theme across successful transformations, both anecdotally and in rigorous scientific studies, is the deliberate use of mental rehearsal. Combined with clear intention and elevated emotion, this involves intentionally creating a vivid, felt picture of a desired reality in the mind, independent of the external environment or current physical limitations. It's about becoming a new self, a healthier, more capable self in the present moment, before the physical reality is even caught up.
So practicing being well before you are well.
In essence, yes. We see compelling examples of this everywhere. Elite athletes, individuals undergoing radical personal change. Consider Aaron Rodgers, the celebrated Green Bay Packers quarterback. He attributes much of his success, including that remarkable 86.1% completion rate in a key playoff game before their 2011 Super Bowl win, to visualizing plays beforehand, systematically visualizing making those plays in meetings, watching film, even lying in bed before sleep. He even noted he visualized successfully spinning out of 3 potential sacks in that game before they happened, effectively training his brain and body for success through pure mental simulation.
Priming the pathways.
Exactly. Similarly, golfing legend Jack Nicklaus,
He famously detailed his process in his book, Golf My Way, stated he never hit a shot, even in practice, without first creating a color movie in his head. He would see the ball finishing exactly where he wanted, see its trajectory, its behavior on landing, and finally see himself making the swing. Only after this short, private Hollywood spectacular, as he called it, would he select his club and take the physical action. Meticulous mental preparation creating the neurological pathways for success.
That level of detail is key, it seems.
It seems so. And on a more personal, perhaps inspiring note, consider Jim Carrey. As a struggling actor just arrived in Los Angeles, he famously visualized a successful future. He wrote himself a check for $10 million, dated for Thanksgiving 1995, for acting services rendered on it, carried it in his wallet for years. He'd drive to Mulholland Drive, visualize meeting the right people, getting the right jobs, making a profound difference, not leaving until he felt as though he was that successful person. In 1994, 3 of his films were released, and for his role in Dumb and Dumber, he received a check for exactly $10 million. He created exactly what he had envisioned, a powerful interplay of clear intention, strong emotion, and consistent mental focus.
Those anecdotes are incredibly powerful. It makes perfect sense in the context of performance and achievement. But what about the direct physiological impact? Do scientific studies corroborate this idea that mental practice alone can induce physical changes in the brain and body?
Absolutely. And this is where the science truly reinforces the anecdotal power. Research has shown that subjects who mentally practiced a simple 5-finger piano exercise 2 hours a day, 5 days, made the same brain changes as those who physically practiced it, without ever lifting a finger.
The same changes, just by thinking about it.
The same changes. The region of their brains controlling finger movements increased dramatically. Their brains looked as though the imagined experience had actually happened. They effectively installed neurological hardware and software by thought alone, demonstrating neuroplasticity in action through mental rehearsal. Another groundbreaking study demonstrated that individuals who only imagined exercising their little fingers 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, increased their finger strength by 35% over 12 weeks.
35% strength increase from imagination.
Compared impressively to a 53% increase for those who physically exercised. Their minds genuinely changed their bodies, showing physical adaptation and measurable strength gains from a purely mental process. It highlights the brain's incredible ability to prime the body for action and adaptation simply through focused thought. This concept extends right down to cellular regeneration and the very mechanisms of healing. When the placebo effect is at work, a clear intention, meticulously defined and held in mind, coupled with a nurturing, elevated emotion, gratitude, joy, love, can send the precise energetic and chemical signals to cellular DNA. This not only influences the healthy production of proteins for better structure and function, but it can also activate latent stem cells.
Stem cells, the body's repair kit.
Exactly. Think of them as get-out-of-jail-free cards, if you like. Once activated, they can replace damaged cells in areas like arthritic knees or accelerate post-surgical recovery. The sustained, high-amplitude emotional energy generated internally, independent of external circumstances, that serves as the critical force driving these epigenetic changes, signaling genes ahead of any external environmental input. It's about changing internal state to create external reality, literally prompting the body to rebuild and repair.
That's a profound shift in perspective. Our minds literally activating cellular regeneration, influencing stem cells. We've talked biological neurochemical shifts, but there's an even deeper layer, isn't there, drawing from quantum physics. Could you elaborate on how our consciousness might interact with reality at that fundamental level? Beyond just chemical reactions, what implications might that have for us as medical professionals?
Absolutely. To truly grasp the depth of this mind-body connection, we really must move beyond the limitations of classical Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics views the universe as, well, a predictable machine, separate, distinct parts, governed by linear cause and effect. It's excellent for understanding how a baseball flies, how planets orbit. It's the physics of the macroscopic world, what we can directly observe. However, quantum physics introduces us to a world where matter and energy are intimately unified, interchangeable even. It delves into the very tiny subatomic world. When quantum physicists began examining the smaller and smaller aspects of an atom, its nucleus, its electrons, the closer they looked, the less distinct and clear the atom became, until it appeared to disappear entirely, existing more as a probability wave.
More like potential than a solid thing.
Yeah, exactly. This led to the discovery that atoms, the very building blocks of everything we perceive as solid matter, are effectively 99.9999999999999% empty space. But that space isn't truly empty. It's filled with immense amounts of energy and information. This means that everything, including our physical bodies, our cells, our organs, is fundamentally energy and information. It's a scientific fact that the known universe, no matter how solid matter appears, is essentially energy and information oscillating at various frequencies.
So we're more energy than matter, fundamentally.
Fundamentally, yes. The key lies in understanding vibration. In the quantum realm, everything vibrates. When energy vibrates at a slower speed, its particles appear to spend more time in physical reality, appearing more solid as matter. Conversely, faster vibrations create more energy and less apparent solidity, becoming more wave-like. Think of a fan. When its blades spin slowly, you see them as solid objects. When they spin very fast, they blur into an immaterial energetic field. Our consciousness, in this view, is intrinsically linked to this fundamental field of information and energy. By changing our internal energy through elevated thoughts and emotions, we could literally lift the vibration of our atomic structure, effectively becoming more wave and less particle, increasing our energetic coherence.
Coherence. What does that mean in this context?
Coherence. It means when our brain waves and bodily systems function in an organized, synchronized fashion, in rhythm, working together efficiently. They send clear, powerful, orderly signals throughout the nervous system and to every cell. This coherence fosters optimal cellular communication and function, directly supporting processes like growth, repair, healing. Incoherence, on the other hand, is a lack of rhythm, disorderliness. It leads to breakdown and dysfunction within the body's systems, contributing to disease. And crucially, research indicates that the receptor sites on the outside of our body's cells are 100 times more sensitive to electromagnetic signals, energy, and frequency than they are to chemical signals, like neurotransmitters or hormones, which we traditionally focus on in cellular communication.
100 times more sensitive to energy signals.
Yes. Which means the energetic signature of our thoughts and emotions can directly influence cellular function and DNA expression. When higher, more coherent energy generated by elevated thoughts and emotions interacts with slower, incoherent energy, like that of diseased cells, it actually entrains matter to a more organized, higher frequency state, effectively lifting matter to a new mind. This invisible field of consciousness, both within us and all around us, truly orchestrates the intelligent functions of our cells, tissues, organs. For medical professionals, this implies our conscious intention, imbued with emotion, could be a primary driver of physiological change, not just a secondary effect.
These concepts are incredibly powerful. They paint a picture of human potential that feels almost limitless, suggesting our consciousness isn't just a byproduct of the brain, but an active participant in shaping our physical reality. But for our medical audience, what verifiable, objective evidence exists? Evidence that individuals can harness these principles for profound, measurable health changes, rather than just subjective improvements or, philosophical musings? What does the data show?
This is indeed where the work becomes truly exciting and scientifically grounded. Moving beyond theory into verifiable clinical proof. In our advanced workshops, we have collected extensive objective data. Using sophisticated equipment, including quantitative electroencephalograms, QEEGs, which precisely map brain activity. We also measure changes in heart function using heart rate variability, genetic expression, energetic shifts, all in real time. The results are, well, nothing short of astounding, consistently showing real biological transformations that are objectively measurable and correlate directly with changes in mental and emotional states.
Okay, so let's hear about some of those.
Let's look at Lori's remarkable story. Diagnosed at 19, polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, a rare degenerative bone disease where normal bone is replaced with fragile fibrous tissue. She endured 12 serious fractures, experienced chronic pain, severe limitations for 28 years, constantly reinforcing a belief in her own fragility, her limited future. Through consistent meditation, she intentionally cultivated a feeling of wholeness, vital energy, resilience, transcending her sick person identity. Despite her circumstances worsening before they improved, she persisted, maintained her internal vision. After 28 years with the disease, subsequent medical tests showed no evidence of fractures whatsoever, and her urine values for bone health, previously abnormal, had returned to perfectly normal levels.
No evidence of fractures. After 28 years of degeneration?
None. Her body literally caught up with her mind, demonstrating a complete biological reversal of a condition considered progressive and debilitating. Then there's Candace. She suffered from Hashimoto's thyroiditis, a debilitating autoimmune condition where the immune system attacks the thyroid gland. She recognized she was living in constant emergency mode, often feeling like a victim, consumed by anger, frustration. By consistently transmuting these lower emotions into elevated emotions, compassion, gratitude during her meditations, she reported a huge shift very quickly.
What kind of shift?
Her energy increased dramatically.
Her thinking became clearer, the cognitive fog lifted. Her body began moving back into homeostasis. Her thyroid marker started to normalize. She shifted from a state of chronic autoimmune disease to one of balance simply by consciously changing her internal emotional landscape and the accompanying neurochemistry. Perhaps one of the most dramatic cases we've witnessed is Joanne. Advanced multiple sclerosis, bedridden for years, completely unable to move her legs. Her brain and spinal column showed significant damage on MRIs. During one of our workshops, she set a firm intention to walk. Combined with intense elevated emotion, she felt what it would be like to walk. Astonishingly, after just 1 hour-long meditation, she stood up and walked unassisted.
After 1 hour from being bedridden.
1 hour-long meditation. Later, she regained the ability to wiggle her toes, flex her feet movements she hadn't been able to do for years. She genuinely changed her condition by moving beyond her MS identity, embracing a new future. Her body followed suit in a way that defied conventional medical understanding.
These individual stories are truly inspiring, especially with the objective measurements you mentioned. But what does your collective data show from hundreds of participants? Are these isolated incidents, or do you see consistent patterns of profound change across larger groups?
The collected data from hundreds of participants in our workshops absolutely reinforces these individual stories. It provides broad scientific validation. Our QEEG brain mapping data, for instance, shows that a remarkable 91% of individuals presented with significantly improved brain function. The majority moved from less coherent, disorderly, erratic brain patterns to more coherent states, orderly, synchronized, harmonious, with over 82% functioning within the healthy, normal range of brain activity by the end of the workshops.
So measurable improvements in brain coherence for the vast majority.
Yes. We observed a dramatic reduction in brain chatter, hyperactivity, indicative of reduced anxiety, improved cognitive function, enhanced brain integration, a direct neurophysiological shift. And crucially, we see unique alternating alpha-theta patterns in the frontal lobes during meditation. These are consistently correlated with states of high-level thankfulness and gratitude. This data suggests the inner experience of these elevated emotions is so real, so robust, that the brain and body respond as if the desired future has already occurred, triggering profound biological changes, release of healing neurochemicals, activation of beneficial gene expression. Furthermore, our students on average could enter and sustain a meditative state, shifting their brain waves into these beneficial patterns in less than a minute. A testament to the power of intentional practice and the body's innate intelligence. These are not just subjective feelings, they are objective, measurable shifts in brain and body function, demonstrating a remarkable self-regulatory capacity.
This deep dive has truly illuminated the extraordinary capabilities embedded within our own biology. It really is a powerful reminder that while external interventions, conventional medicine are absolutely crucial, the internal landscape of the mind holds immense, often untapped, potential for healing and transformation.
Indeed, you've captured it perfectly. The core message that emerges from all this research, all these compelling cases, is truly profound. You are the placebo. The power to heal and transform resides within your capacity to combine clear intention with an elevated emotion and consistent disciplined practice. This is not about negating the importance of modern medicine, not at all. Rather, it's about understanding how we can profoundly augment it by activating the body's innate intelligence and self-healing mechanisms. It's about empowering patients, and indeed ourselves, to become active, conscious participants in their well-being, rather than passive recipients of treatment.
Taking ownership of that internal power.
Precisely. And when enough individuals begin to embrace this new consciousness, based on possibility, aligning their actions with their intentions, living by universal laws, perhaps of love and compassion, a new collective consciousness can truly emerge. Think of a school of fish or a flock of birds moving as one mind, not due to a single leader, but through the synchronous, harmonious action of each individual. This is what's possible when we collectively shift our internal states.
A truly provocative thought, hinting at a future where individual transformation can coalesce into a global shift. For you, our dedicated medical professionals listening, consider what incredible possibilities open up when you integrate this profound understanding into your daily practice, into your approach to patient communication and care, and indeed into your own lives. What might the future of medicine truly look like when the immense power of the mind is fully acknowledged and leveraged? If you found this deep dive insightful, please do consider rating and sharing our show. It helps more medical professionals discover these powerful concepts. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.